r/IAmA. Posted by u/fallenangel3633. I am a 100-year-old human and a World War II veteran. I want to share my life and experiences with people who might be helped by them. Ask me anything. Greetings. As you may have imagined, the person typing and facilitating this IAmA is not the 100-year-old human, but his granddaughter, me. A little bit about my grandpa: he grew up in Washington State, and has traveled quite a bit. He worked for the FDA for many years, some as an investigator, some as a pharmacist. He served in the Air Force during World War II as a photographer. Clearly there's more to him than this, so ask him some questions. Y'all, he is enjoying this so much. He's flabbergasted at how many people are asking questions and upvoting him. At first he thought it was all people I knew, haha. He's so happy. We're gonna take a little break, some of my family just arrived for a visit. 4:14 p.m. ET. We're back. Gonna knock out some more questions until I have to dip. Appreciate all the interest. Sorry he sometimes misunderstands some questions, aha. With a lot of these I'll ask him and he says let me think about that a bit and I'll circle back, and I guess he hasn't finished thinking about them, so sorry for those still waiting. Lol. 5:05 p.m. ET, so he's starting to fall asleep as I ask him questions, so I think we're gonna call it a day, aha. He's in rehab for a broken hip right now, and a bit forgetful and confused at times, so hopefully that will give some explanation to some of the stranger answers he's said. Thank you so much for everyone who asked things and commented and told stories and thanked him. He is just so pleased. I'll go through this as I'm able and answer what I can from my perspective. Next time I visit him, I'll try to get a few more answered. He'll remember this for a long time. Thank you all, so much. November 6, 2019, 5:39 p.m. ET. Hi all. I stopped by my grandpa's current place today and asked and answered a few more questions. He gets tired pretty quickly, and tends to say I need to think about that for things that aren't direct, broad questions like meaning of life and such, so for further questions I would encourage more specific questions. I'll continue asking him things as we're able. There are a lot to go through, but I and we appreciate the interest so much. Every time I update him about the number of upvotes, his face lights up smile. While we're here and this has so much visibility, wow, I've got to put this out there, cause I'd really love to have the opportunity to live as long as my grandpa has. We need climate action. We are currently headed down a very dangerous path, due to the fault of the super wealthy who have gotten rich off of fossil fuels and extractive industries and covered up the negative consequences that will have a disproportionate harmful effect on poor people both in the future and now. While the situation is dire, there is hope. But only if we come together and take an active role in politics, local, state, and national, pushing for climate solutions. The easiest way to do this is, of course, to get good people into office who will push for climate justice so we don't have to be in the streets all the time. So vote responsibly, make sure that human isn't just greenwashing while still taking money from fossil fuel industry, but is taking real action. Greatco. And, if you are able, please join a climate justice organization, or donate to one. It has given me a great sense of community and solace being in the Sunrise Movement, being around people who are scared about the future just like me and learning about what to do about it together. It's been a truly transformative influence in my life, and I am so thankful for that. Links below for some organizations I like, but there are definitely others, so please, look them up and find one right for you. Note: while my grandpa is not super hip about all the aspects of climate change, I have shared my life with him and he has been super supportive of me and my journey of action, and for that I am so grateful. Join, take action, support the Green New Deal, and / or donate please. I want us all to live as long as my grandpa less than 3. Wow, that's a long time to be alive. Now, what hasn't changed in your life? Something that you believe always has been and may always will be. Common sense. As a 33-year-old, I feel like this is starting to make more and more sense to me, and I wish I had lived my life this was sooner. I'm so glad to know that I'm on the right path. Cheers to 100 years. How's it like watching your children actually grow old? A great delight. What was the most tense moment of your life? When I stepped forward to get married. No kidding, just briefly, I thought I was gonna faint when the pastor asked those questions. Emo, a little nervousness is good. Tells you that you're taking it seriously and understand all the unknowns you're committing to. What's a food you loved in the past that doesn't taste the same anymore? Good home fries. Laughs, I'll have to think about that. We got more acquainted with lamb instead of beef. I can say he loves his oysters, always has and always will. A true Marylander. What's the best and worst thing about being 100 years old? Best thing? Being alive, laughs, one of us, one of us. What did you do in the years after the war? Was it directly back to school or something else? Got my license in pharmacy, saw recruitment for FDA and joined them, and traveled to see how other people lived. Thanks for joining us on Reddit today. My question, have you been to Germany or Japan since the war? What were your thoughts? The wife and I have been to Germany since for vacation. I've been to Japan since in regard to FDA regulations. Just looking at their food habits, and their environment, just appreciating what they had. I'll put his more rambling answers to questions that haven't been asked yet, haha. During the war with Japan, there was periods of time that the Navy would set forth on the map a 30-mile stay-out area, and it was such we had to go back in and photograph it, but in the meantime we photographed outside of the 30-mile radius. When I say we, I mean the photo planes. Flight _ was in the area to fill in the 30-mile circle that hadn't been photographed when the president announced the bombing of Hiroshima. Right after the president announced, everyone was scrambling to see what flight Foreign Air would bring back, because our cameras were used to make pictures 18 inches wide 9 inches deep. In Europe they used the same camera with a lens arrangement taking 5 inches square for wherever they were flying. And so the word came down to my repatriman and me that our cameras better not fail this time because they had longer service periods than those in Europe. In the theater, we thought those photographs were very restricted. Within less than several weeks, our pictures were in some of the public photo magazines. The Japanese had invaded some western part of the Philippines. The photo planes photographed where they were. Prints were made, all large size, at least 8 by 10 or larger, and they were asked to deliver by air to the ground troops near the Japanese. The first attempt at that, they dropped a package of them, but it got torn up, so they asked for further prints, and they said this time. The P-30 photos took pictures. The first picture stopped, did Heidi photo work, took the pie. They put a red flag on a pole, please see if you can come close to it. The pilot who came knocked the red flag down. He radioed back, is that close enough? During college, I was in pharmacy and the Baptist church rented a room where once a week people could gather there and have a fish and chip lunch for 35 cents. I graduated in high school in 1937, was one of the few boys in a school of 300 that had his own car. That's because I went out and got a job delivering papers that I enjoyed doing. Several things I learned from the gas station. There was a fella that had a Cadillac Oldsmobile and every time he went somewhere it would squeak. The dealers tried to fix it but I figured out what to do due to my dad's suggestion to me to figure out how something works then do it. That way I can give help to my dad, my father-in-law, and other people I knew. His dad was very mechanically oriented. Most shocking thing you photographed in World War II that you did not expect? Let's not put it on what I photographed. In Normandy, of all the areas that photoplanes did, was the total area that they put into pictures, that ended up in something like 10,000 total prints. We'll add something later on, he says. Could someone explain his answer? Doesn't make any sense to me. It sounds like the shocking bit is the sheer number of photos needed to document the battlefield? I think, anyway. My great-grandmother lived to 108 and she told the best stories about life and learning. What is one thing you'd like to share with younger generations? Just use common sense. We're fucked. GG. Has reaching 10 decades given you any new insight? The world is a mess. Laughs, I may want to modify that answer later. I like you. What do you know at 100 years old, that wish you knew far earlier? Answer delayed. That's a sticker. How to work with other people insufficient data for meaningful answer. Living 100 years, what was the biggest leap of technology that you've experienced? What seemed the most unreal when it came out? On computers, it was something that took me a while to catch on to, and how to use it. When they first became a thing, he was odd. On television, essentially the same answer. My grandfather, also 100-plus-year-old World War II vet, also says cell phones is the greatest technological invention. Particularly that they turned the early computers the size of a small apartment into something that fits in your pocket. The artillery guns and others were equipped with equipment that could detect when other objects were nearby and go off even though it had not been aimed at. That technology was used also for ground fire. There was a time during the Pacific part of the war that U.S. forces did not know where the Japanese fleet was. The CO of the 8th Photo, which was also in my general area, was flying on a photo mission and saw the Japanese fleet. He hightailed his way home squawking on his radio. The radios was good for 35 miles. That resulted in a US Navy dealing with the Japanese fleet, both air and navy. In case it's not clear, he's talking about the proximity fuse that was invented in that era. What's one thing that you remember from your experiences that doesn't fail to make you smile? Whenever he talks about his late wife, Audrey, there is a light that illuminates his entire being. He loved her so much. She died a little after I was born, so I didn't get to know her unfortunately. His calendar in his bedroom is still on the month/year that she died. She was very dear to him. Military or not, what achievement has made you happiest in life? Having an excellent family and superb friends. I recently came across a shoebox full of letters that my great-grandparents wrote to each other during World War II. Did you have anyone you were writing sweetheart letters to? For general letters, just a few people I met in the service, Air Force. For sweetheart there was a girl in study hall every other seat in the auditorium. I liked her very much. She had a Spanish book, I looked to the other side of me, another girl had a dictionary, I used her dictionary to write to the first one, she thought I knew Spanish but I didn't, she was mad at me. What was the biggest change you noticed while working for the FDA for many years? How FDA regulations assured quality food, drugs, cosmetics. Is there anything from his younger days that he truly regrets doing/not doing to this day? Regret, not marrying Audrey earlier. Laughs. Audrey was his wife. Now that's an answer you'd expect from a gentleman. I wish all the best for you and your gramps. Did you ever smoke tobacco? Only on specific assignments of undercover work. At medical appointments I've taken him to, for the questionnaire he's always said never. I guess it took a stranger asking to find the truth. Do bananas really taste different now? Anecdotally from the people I have asked is something along the lines of they looked different. Thicker skin, and bigger. Can't remember how they tasted, it's been decades. But seem to think of them as having a creamier texture. That detailed answer with primary sources seems to suggest this creamer aspect might have a slight truth to it. Either way, it is technically still possible to try Gros Michel for yourself, but not super easy to obtain. May involve trying to grow a plant yourself. One of the training things our P-38 is photograph various things widespread. One pilot flew to the Grand Canyon and photographed the underside of the big bridge. When he got back to Colorado Springs he was there with scissors to cut off the underside of the bridge because that was illegal kind of flying. Not many people saw that. Holy crap, the pilot flew inverted under the bridge. Insanity. Because I was inverted. Did you fathom ever reaching 100? Perhaps it's cliché to ask, but, what is it like reaching such a milestone? I dreamed of being able to do that, and I did it. And an impossible question, laughs. Was the food you ate at war any good? Some was not, mainly getting used to the lamb. My grandfather, born 1912, hated lamb ever since the war since it was practically the only meat they got in the military. He was in the Swedish Anti-Aircraft Corps, and it was boiled to a leather-like quality. I heard you have a pretty cool granddaughter. Not the one in that photo. She's okay I guess. A different one, who is clearly far superior. How does it feel to have such a cool granddaughter? Again, not that one. The other one. I froze out. Laughs, I'll work on that later. Actually his favorite of all time is his third son. I'm starting to think some of these folks know each other. What was his favorite plane that he got to photograph? World War II or anything afterwards? And thank you for your service, sir. P-38 fighter/photo. The fighter aircraft was used mainly in Europe area. The photo area was used to take the guns out, put in 2 or 3 sets of cameras, and the prints/negatives that were produced were 18 inches wide and 9 inches deep. Most of those photos were made around 20,000 feet, so that gives you the scale for how you wanted to measure it. The P-38 was used somewhat in the Pacific. The P-38 was an escort for the bombers, but it was mainly recognized as a fighter plane. But around Europe, Big River there, they put 150 and 300-pound bombs and made them into bombers, because the Germans would look up, oh they're just taking photos, and kaboom. Dear Sir. I don't have a question really, but as a man that was in a war-torn country in my youth, Bosnia, I want to say that without people like you lift my spirits up by a huge margin. I remember being there as a kid and seeing US soldiers riding the tanks through the streets and I would wave at them and every single time they waved back. This is more than just being nice, this wave back made a kid like myself feel safe and more at ease in a place filled with destruction and death, and that goes a long way. My grandparents were in World War II as well, And that was by far the worst of the worst wars. The worst of humanity's evil side was in that war, but also the best. To have been a part of literally the world's good versus evil conflict cannot go unforgotten and without all of us thanking you. So please, take it from me, a random Bosnian guy on the internet, we truly appreciate you and are forever grateful for you, and we literally owe you guys our lives. Thank you, you are loved by a lot of people, please never forget that. As far as a question, here is one. When you came home from World War II, after greetings your family and getting rest etc., when you found yourself alone with no one around, what was the first thing you did alone? Thank you again, I can't say it enough. I read this to him and he got a big smile. As for the question, he says leave that unanswered for the moment. Hello sir, I'm from Morocco, I heard about your story and this is amazing. Sir, I'm 25 years old, you have more experience in this life. So I will tell you my story. I am weak sir, I don't have the power to stand in this word. Every night I think about suicide. I am fresh graduate, still I can't find a job, I can't find love. In the early stages of my life my only friends were books. And still now I can't find the meaning of life. I think every day about if this life deserved to be like that. So sir, my question, what is the meaning of life? How can we live with happiness? With your experience, how can someone like me be happy in this life? Thank you and have a nice day sir, best regards. This is just the granddaughter right now, but I will ask him this next I see him. I'm 23. I want to say some words to you. While I don't know you, I don't believe you are weak. If every night you think about suicide and yet you don't listen to the lies your brain tells you, that makes you very very strong in my book. As for being a fresh graduate and not being able to find a job, or a job in your major, that does not define you, that does not define your worth in this world. As a recent graduate myself, I know it's hard. It's so hard specializing in something and then not being able to find a job in that thing you're passionate about right away. But let me tell you, your human worth does not depend on your possession of a job. That's honestly what the system wants you to think. As for love, I would say from my experience I think that I only found it when I stopped desperately searching and wishing and projecting my desires on other people. However, I know that was just my personal barrier and everyone is different and has different love life/issues/whatever. I so feel you about the only friends being books thing. I didn't learn a lot of social skills growing up, so I feel like I've had to do extra work to learn them now as an adult. It's hard, but it's so worth it, even though it's painful and it requires putting yourself out there and being open to the world and receptive to learning. I have made true growth as a person from doing these things continually to improve myself. I read a little book thing about how to get closer to people. Please, let me know if you would like it and I will send it to you electronically. And, as for the meaning of life, that's a damn tough one. I'm still unsure. But everything I've learned so far, props to Buddhism and mindfulness, is pointing me towards the conclusion that there is no real, solid, concrete destination/meaning of life, but that the meaning of life is the journey itself, to try to help others be happy and to try to follow what makes you happy, even if the goal and the present are very far away. When we are going somewhere and look on a GPS, we don't wonder, man, why didn't I just teleport? But I've found that thought to be present in my life, of I am here now and here is bad, so why am I not at that goal? But that's an incorrect way of thinking. I now try to keep in mind that life is a process, and as long as I am making efforts to move towards that goal of mine, even though I'm not there yet, then that is good, and that is all I can do. I hope this helps.